Welcome to Rise of the Rulelords Unchained. It is your collective and bargaining Rulelord, Pete. And as I've talked about in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, there's been some news going on with Paizo. Starting with Paizo accountability, a number of different accusations came out. A couple of workers were fired, let go for different reasons. And ever since then, no matter which of the various accusations that have come up, a couple of current workers especially have been pretty vocal that there are issues within Paizo that need fixing. And in my Paizo accountability podcast, one of my main calls was for unionization. And I am super duper jazzed to find out that that is actually happening with the United Paizo Workers Union. And so today I'm very excited that we have Jason Tondro, the senior developer at Paizo. He doesn't have an official title within the union, but he's been doing a lot of different interviews that I think you should check out. But I'm very excited to have him on today to tell us a little bit more about this exciting development with Paizo and its employees. So Jason, how are you, and what are your pronouns, and what should people know about you?
Hey, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here, Peter. Thank you. I'm Jason Tondro, he, him. And as you say, I am one of the senior developers at Paizo. I work on both the Pathfinder and Starfinder adventure path lines. I started there about 3.5 years ago as an editor. I moved to the Starfinder developer team about 2 years ago. And I developed I was the lead developer for the Fly Free or Die adventure path at Starfinder, which is very much about working class heroes just trying to pay their bills, and not trying to save the galaxy. We even have an article on unions in the back of, I think, volume 5 of that.
Yeah, and don't unions show up in Agents of Edgewatch as
they
well,
do.
it sounds like?
They do. I wasn't responsible for that, but that was a little bit of inspiration for our logo. For those out there who haven't seen our logo yet, it sure looks an awful lot like a kobold. Yeah. I confirm or deny nothing, but it sure looks a lot like it. Anyway, so I was a developer on the Starfinder team, doing Fly Free or Die, and then back matter, assisting my friend Jason Keeley on Horizons of the Vast. And I'm now developing the upcoming 3-volume Drift Crashers adventure path, part of the Drift Crisis line-wide event at Starfinder. But about 2 months ago, I was promoted to senior developer because they needed some help on the Pathfinder side. And so I have come on to the Pathfinder team, to basically pinch hit. So I'll be switching between Pathfinder and Starfinder adventure paths for a while. I actually just pitched my first Pathfinder adventure path about 3 weeks ago, and it's really exciting. But that's enough about me, right? Like, we're here to talk about the union, United Paizo Workers. Yeah,
that's great to set up your credentials, because online, at least, every once in a while, I have seen people discredit some of the people who have spoken out about some of the things going on at Paizo because they're ex-workers or haven't been there for years, and what do they know?
Yeah.
And so, like, you're someone who is currently working there.
That's
right.
You
currently have a insight into the goings on at Paizo. Yeah. So tell us, what is the United Paizo Workers Union, and why do employees need it?
Okay, so United Paizo Workers, we have one goal right now, and that is to get recognition from Paizo's executive team, acknowledging the union as the official bargaining arm of the Paizo employees. And we formed Thursday. Today, as I say this, as I record this, it's the 16th of October, and a Saturday. So the last 48 hours have been pretty interesting. But we have been working behind the scenes for a while now, about a month or so, and that's just officially. There's been a lot of talk, to get to your question, why do employees need it? There has been talk about unionizing in the tabletop role-playing game industry for as long as there's been a tabletop role-playing game industry, I think. Certainly for many years now. And whether that's been at Wizards of the Coast or Paizo or other companies here in Seattle or elsewhere. But I'll tell you, unionizing is just not easy. Like, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. There's a lot of legal requirements. It's just a process. And when most tabletop employees are barely getting by, like we're doing it as a side gig with a day job, or we're getting paid peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
We're just too busy trying to make rent. We don't have enough brain space left over at the end of the day to make these unions happen. And that's where the UPW has finally managed to break through, right? So Jenny Jarzabski wrote to me a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and approached me about the union and asked me if I was interested, if I would be interested in a union. And I said, hell yeah. I've written about, like, literally this week, the Lost Omens Grand Bazaar book came out.
Right.
And I only wrote about 5 pages for that book. But 2 of those pages are about Igwil, the trans dwarf proprietor of Lost and Found. And he is a union man. He is a labor activist and union organizer. So I have been writing about workers' rights and the struggle of working class people at Paizo for as long as I've had the chance to write for Paizo.
Right.
And I grew up in a union family. My dad was a sheet metal mechanic in a fabrication shop, and my mom was a secretary. And I had been in unions before. I was an academic before I came to Paizo.
Mm-hmm.
And I demonstrated in our union as a graduate student and adjunct teacher. Well, anyway, I'm wandering, but my point is just that I was all in. And so then about a week or 2 later, Jenny gave me an invite to a Discord server. And lo and behold, there were already a whole bunch of people there, right? Like I was not the first person to be recruited for UPW, and I was not the last. And so we quickly built up. And what that meant was, because there were a lot of us, we were able to create a committee, and then we could divide all of this labor that's so much required to create a union amongst all of those people. So pretty soon we had a contact with the CWA, the Communication Workers of America, and we could start to get the paperwork filed with the National Labor Relations Board and all kinds of other stuff that it's just hard for one person to do. And so to get to the second part of your question, why do we need it? Well, there's a lot of things that we honestly believe that Paizo would be better as a company if it had worker representation in the room when these decisions get made. Union jobs are good jobs. And so on one hand, it's better for Paizo. And on the second, it's better for the employees.
Right.
We want to get some salary transparency. We want to get some reasonable salaries for the people that live here. We live in an incredibly expensive part of the country.
No.
Seattle? Seattle is incredibly expensive. And none of us are ever going to be able to afford a mortgage on the salaries we get. We also want remote work. Right now, we're working from home, but that's only been guaranteed by the executive board through the end of the quarantine, through the pandemic. And some of us like working from the office. Some of us are happy to go into the office, and for whatever reason. But a lot of us are quite happy working from home. We've come to enjoy it and to see some benefits to it. And we'd like to extend that remote work beyond the pandemic. We'd also like to make it possible to remote work from more than just the Seattle area.
Yeah.
This is a possible answer to some of the salary problems. Let's say that the union, it sits in the same room with executives, and we look at all the books and we do contract negotiations, and the executives and the union agree. Like, there's just no money to give everybody a big pay raise. We can't all be making $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then how do we solve the problem that you can't survive in Seattle on the salary that we're given? Well, what if we could work from elsewhere? I was hired at Paizo 3.5 years ago with $38,000. I live alone. I don't have a roommate, and I got a car, and I got student loans, right? And what if, but what if I was living in the worst neighborhood of Seattle? If I didn't get freelance, I didn't eat. But what if I could take that $38,000 or $40,000 now? I believe that our minimum salary for creatives, not for the entire company, but for creatives, is $40,000. What if you could take that and you could live somewhere else? Somewhere where $40,000 a year can stretch a lot farther, right? I'm not saying that's a perfect solution, but for some people it might be. We'd like to change our hiring practices, or I should say we want to clarify our hiring practices.
Right.
When I was hired to Paizo, I had never written a single word for Paizo before. I had not been a freelancer. I saw a job posting. That job posting had requirements and recommendations, and it had an email address that I could send a resume to. And that's what I did. And that got me a test, a blind test that I had 3 days to complete. And then everything that identified me on that test was removed so that the editorial team could read it without knowing who I was. Mm-hmm. And that's a good policy. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
That gives everybody a chance to get at those jobs. But what happens is that sometimes especially when we're crunched for time, we tend to go to our freelancers pool to hire people. Mm-hmm. Now that makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. The freelancers are fantastic. We've worked with them. We know them. They know us. They know our style guide. They know our game. They know our line. But they're not the only people that know those things. Right. And I'd like to move, we as a union would like to move back to a situation where anybody, not just the small circle of freelancers that already know someone in the building, we would like to move to a position where anybody could apply to Paizo. And I think that would improve diversity in our workplace too.
Absolutely. Especially if people don't have to move across the entire country to,
Bingo.
Again, one of the most expensive cities. There's probably a ton of people you're missing out on because of that.
And a lot of people that represent our players and our GMs, a lot of folks can't afford to move across the country. And it's underrepresented people in America that suffer the most from those relocation issues. And if you're coming from if you're coming from an underrepresented population, that's exactly who we need. If we're going to make games that portray our players, then those games have to be written by people that represent those voices. Anyway, so yeah, I just agree with you.
That's a pretty good overview, I think, of what the union is asking for. Like right now is the transparency, the ability to work from home, maybe pay raises if it can be worked out. But are there any other, like maybe lesser known things that are being asked for that maybe are just like quality of life improvements or things that just would put you guys in a better situation at Paizo?
Well, I want to step back for 1 minute and I want to clarify all of those things that we were just talking about, salary, transparency, everything. That's later. We got one thing to do first. We can't do anything until we get recognized as the bargaining arm for the employees at Paizo. And there's two ways that can happen. I don't want to call it the easy way and the hard way because that sets up kind of an antagonistic relationship. But but there's a long way and a less long way. Mm-hmm. And the less long way is for the executives to acknowledge the union, to acknowledge UPW. Voluntarily, exactly. And there's a lot of reasons to do that. Number one reason is that we have a supermajority of the employees have publicly come out in favor of the union anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's going to happen.
And that's like 30 or so people right now?
If you want the numbers, I can give you the numbers.
Yeah, what was the last number?
All right, so first off, you have to remember that managers don't qualify. Paizo was like 70 plus employees.
Okay.
That's counting everybody. That's the creative staff, the developers, designers, editorial, organized play, art, creative directors.
So from the total, we're subtracting the managers.
But then it's also customer service, warehouse staff, IT. And if you take all those people and you take out the managers, you're left with 50 people.
Okay.
So a majority, 50% plus one, is 26. Mm-hmm. And when we were first organizing behind the scenes, that was our first goal, was 26 people. But we can't stop there. We need to have insurance, right? We need to have a buffer. Because what if people leave, or what if people get second thoughts, right? And there's a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of money can be spent. I'm not saying our company's going to do it, but there's a lot of money that can be spent on anti-union activities, persuading people with carrots or sticks to change their vote. So we could not go into this, and we were advised about this from our CWA mentors and with some horror stories about failed union efforts in the past. We've done a bunch of training for this. So we knew that we had to have a buffer. And we could not go public until we had a super majority. When we came out on Thursday, we had 35, so 70%. Right. And that was a nice, comfortable number, 70%.
Yeah.
And our numbers have gone up since then.
Ooh.
So that means that we've got the numbers. If Paizo's executive team recognizes the union, then we can get right to contract negotiations and we can get this wagon train on the road. We're all working. None of us there's no strike. We are not working. We are not boycotting. We are not asking for a boycott. We are working every day. But contract negotiations and union representation is going to happen. So we can get to it right now. If we did, we'd save Paizo a lot of money, because if Paizo decides to fight the union, they're going to have to hire labor lawyers that are anti-union, union-busting lawyers. And those fellas are not cheap, let me tell you.
So Paizo recognizes it, and all that they have to do is basically say, we recognize it, and then move forward.
Yeah.
What happens if they don't?
That's right.
What are the next steps for that?
Okay, well, we've actually already taken that step. And that step is filing with the National Labor Relations Board for a union vote. And we have already filed that paperwork. Now, it takes 6 to 8 weeks because politics, quarantine, there's just a lot of stuff that slows this stuff down. But it's going to take about 6 to 8 weeks. And when that happens, there will be a vote. And even if the people that have publicly signed their name to the union letter, if just those people that are already out there as being public, if only they vote yes, we still have a supermajority. Right. So I'm pretty confident that that's what's going to happen. So that's kind of where we are right now. And all of that other stuff like salaries and remote work and that all comes later. That comes after we get recognition and we go to the bargaining.
This has clearly been going on for a really long time. And I think a lot of people who have been following Paizo accountability might look at the departure of Sarah Marie and Diego Valdez as, is this just a knee-jerk reaction, or what's been going on that has been simmering to prompt this?
Well, there's no question, I think, that Sarah Marie's departure, Diego... So whether or not Sarah Marie quit or was fired kind of depends on who you ask. But Diego quit in solidarity with Sarah. Diego was not fired. He quit because Sarah was leaving and it was unjust and wrong. And he quit in solidarity with Sarah Marie. And that the departure of those two employees caused a lot of conversation and created this Paizo accountability movement. But we are not unionizing because of Sarah Marie and Diego, right? Now they are fully in support of what we are doing. The policies that we want fixed at Paizo predate Paizo accountability. And, Jenny, just use one example. I mean, Jenny, we hired about less than a year ago, I think. And she comes from a union family, like me. And we've been talking about this kind of thing basically since day one, between ourselves. And I talked with Owen last night, and Paizo employees have been talking about union for years. Yeah. But I'll tell you, the Paizo accountability movement, for me personally, has been great because it's really shown us how deep our connection is with the players and the GMs and the fans and the freelancers. The freelancers' role in this has been extremely powerful. And can I talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, please talk about that, because this definitely isn't a movement that is just happening with the employees. I've heard that the freelancers have been playing an extremely active role.
That's right.
In helping you guys get this going.
Yeah. So if we rewind a little bit, so Sarah Marie and Diego left the company about a month ago, right before Gen Con. It was Gen Con weekend, like Thursday or Friday. And this caused the initial conversations amongst our fans and players about what's going on at Paizo. And there were a lot of crazy accusations about stuff at Paizo, but a lot of the accusations were founded on facts, absolutely. And it became a little hard to kind of tell the wheat from the chaff, for a while there. But the freelancers came together and they were like, okay, well, look, we're not going to do any more writing for Paizo. We're not going to take any new contracts. We're not going to do any more work on the contracts we're already in the middle of. And we're not going to turn in any completed manuscripts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge show of solidarity.
It's fantastic. Well, now the union stuff hadn't even happened, right? This is all freelancers organizing together amongst themselves. Jessica Redekop and many others. A large group of freelancers. I can't name them all, but there's over 40 of them. Fantastic people, David and Nicole, and so many. So they were like, okay, well, we want things to change at Paizo. And they were fighting for us. They were fighting for us. They wanted us to get paid. They wanted us to be treated like I'm privileged. I'm very lucky. I'm very privileged. I'm like a, heterosexual white dude. I work with a lot of LGBTQ people, underrepresented voices. They have not been treated fairly. It's been so bad. A lot of my fantastic, wonderful colleagues just simply could not take it at the company anymore and have left. And it's tragic. It's infuriating. So amongst this list of demands that the Paizo Accountability freelance group wanted were things like hiring a diversity officer to make sure that those underrepresented voices have a seat at the table, and maybe doing investigations into some of these firings, right? And remote work and salary increases and a lot of the same stuff that we as a union would like to see once we get recognized. Over the last month, the Paizo Accountability folks have just been standing strong, quite frankly. And I don't know how much our listeners know this, but Paizo depends very heavily on freelancers. Yeah. Very little of the book that you buy when you go and you buy the latest Paizo book, very little of it is written by full-time staff members in-house on the clock. Almost all of it is written by freelancers. The developer, somebody like me, or Ron Lundeen or Luis Loza or any John Compton, any of our many other developers, we pitch the idea, we outline it, but then we hire a freelancer to execute that outline. And then when they turn in the manuscript, the developer edits it and develops it and makes it better and sends it on to art. But that means that the vast majority of what Paizo publishes, and we publish a lot, right? If you're a subscriber, you know.
Crazy. Hit my wallet pretty hard.
The vast majority of that stuff is written by freelancers. And when a freelancer refuses to turn in a manuscript, and Paizo's business model is built on constantly publishing new books. That's how we pay the rent. That's how we pay salaries, is by putting out those books to subscribers and others every month. And if that gets interrupted, well, then
that whole machine breaks down.
Starts to break down.
Cog, yeah.
I know for a fact there are books that we have needed to assign to a freelancer 2 weeks ago, and we can't do it because there's no freelancers available to take the job. Some of our listeners might be thinking, well, just hire a different freelancer, hire some new people. Listen, it's not that easy, right? Like the combination of people who know the game system, know the setting, can deliver on time, are experienced and proven and high quality work. 10,000 word organized play scenario, 35,000 word Starfinder adventure, 50,000 word Pathfinder 2 adventure. You can't just assign that to like some new freelancer whom you've never worked with before, right?
Nope.
These are flagship products. They need flagship authors. And that's what our freelancer pool is, right? These are proven people that can deliver high quality on time. They are extraordinarily skilled at what they do. So they weren't coming back until these concerns got addressed. Here's where the two streams come together, right? Here's where we cross the streams. So Thursday, the Paizo Accountability freelancer folks updated their demands and said, we will return to work. We will turn in those manuscripts. We will take new contracts tomorrow if Paizo's executive board recognizes United Paizo workers. So now we had this huge leverage on the part of the freelancers that will come back, and we can start getting things back on schedule again. We can get everything back on track.
Yeah.
If Paizo's executive board does the right thing.
Do the freelancers have anything to gain out of Paizo unionizing, or is this just something that they're doing because they want to see the employees benefit, even if they get no tangible rewards out of unionization?
I'm speaking on my own behalf here, and not because of the union or the freelancer, because I am in contact with occasional members of the freelancers group, with the Paizo Accountability group, but I don't speak for them. But they were doing this. They were making these demands and withholding their labor before the union was formed, right? So before they saw that there was going to be anything happening. And this is a great example of that incredible, it may be unique bond that exists between players of Paizo games and the people that make these games, right? Like when we came out at Gen Con and we were doing these panels, right? We had developers and designers and org play people and everybody, and we were doing these live panels. And it was exactly when this firestorm was first happening with the Sarah Marie and Diego's leaving the company and everything. And you should have seen the chat windows. Like they were filled with support from the players and the GMs and the fans who came here to tell us, listen, we know that you, the people that work at Paizo, are not the problem. You are part of the solution. Like we are together working for a better company. And that's what we want to do. We want to make better games. We want to make Starfinder and Pathfinder are really unique in their roles in the tabletop role-playing game space. And Paizo is a leader in this industry. So let's use that to make improvements, not just at Paizo, but everywhere. To get back to your question, like how can freelancers benefit? Well, I'll tell you one thing. I would personally love to see freelancer rates increase. Now, we have increased these rates recently, and I want to give credit to my publisher, Eric Mona, because developers have been asking to raise those rates for a long time. For a long time, our highest rate was 10 cents a word. And that was sort of the standard, the industry standard. But I'll tell you, kind of like the minimum wage in America, that standard was the standard for too damn long, right? It never went up for cost of living or inflation increases. And 10 cents a word 30 years ago does not buy what 10 cents a word buys now, right?
Sure.
That's just math. So let's raise that number. Let's get freelancers paid better. And people before me, people who were in developer roles before me, like John Compton, for example, have been very vocal about raising those freelancer rates. And we fought, I think we wanted 15 cents a word. We got 12, but I'll take it. Like it's an improvement.
It's an increase.
When we have union representation, when there's a union rep in the room, when these decisions get made and when the books are opened up and the union can look at them, we can help make those decisions. And so we'll have a voice. And so when it comes time to decide, well, how much are we going to pay freelancers? Well, the developers are the voice of the freelancers. We're the people that hire them. We're the people that develop their manuscripts. We give them feedback on their work. We train and educate them so that they can do better and write more work for us, right? So we're in many ways, we're the spokesman for the freelancers in the company. And we're going to be able to do that a lot better. I'd like to see rates go up. I'd like to give them more time to do the writing. Sometimes they have time. Depending on, like, if you're doing an adventure path and it's a 6-volume adventure path and you're writing like volume 4, volume 5, volume 6, well, often you've got months. You've got a long time to write that thing. And that's good. But if you're writing volume 1, sometimes it's like, okay, you got 2 months to write 50,000 words. That's not easy for anybody to do.
I'm sure.
So I'd like to see more time. I'd also like to build some playtest time into the freelancing schedule. So that the freelancers could playtest these adventures or at least encounters. Like if you've got a big set piece encounter that's like a big boss fight or something, like let's play through that. If you've got a complicated terrain or hazard or stuff, like maybe you can't play test the whole adventure, but if you can play test the mechanically complicated parts of it, it would make a better product. It would be a better book.
Make sure it's not a big murder hole like Fall of Plaguestone.
We're off topic, but but on Plaguestone, like, the thing is that the game was very new. Pathfinder 2nd edition was very new, and we just didn't realize that when the game says a severe challenge, it means a severe challenge, right? And you put 2 severe challenges in a row. And I did this myself because I wrote The Show Must Go On, Pathfinder Adventure Path Volume 151. It's the first volume of Extinction Curse. And there's this moment in the first volume where there's 2 severe encounters in a row. And you can run away, like the bad guys won't follow you. It's got kind of an escape valve built in there. But I have gotten a lot of heat for that encounter. And I'll tell you what, you're right. Like it is too hard. And I should have, but the game was new. I mean, I wrote Extinction Curse before 2nd edition was even complete.
Yeah.
Right. I was using playtest rules and leaving the treasure all blank because I could look across the room and see Luis Loza copy fitting the treasure tables. Like, we were all making the game at the same time. We were building the boat at the same time as it was sailing across the ocean, you know? And now, but to get back to your point, like, we know better now. Like, I just got finished writing a volume of Bloodlords AP, which got announced at Gen Con. And Ron, who's my developer, he told all of us in the outline, like, hey, the game is very carefully tuned and the encounters are really hard. So don't do that. Like, learn from our earlier adventures. And so, yeah, Plaguestone is a bitch, but we learned from it, and so now our adventures are better.
That's a lot of awesome work that the freelancers are doing on behalf of the Paizo employees. What can we as consumers do? Like, you said that the union hasn't been calling for boycotts. I've never called for a boycott in my own calls to action. But sometimes that might feel like that's the only thing we can do is vote with our wallets, stop our subscriptions. But are there things that can help the union out even more or just as well, that's still giving money to Paizo, but still emphasizing the importance that we as consumers have in seeing this union get formed or recognized?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you all can do. And first off, I want to send everybody to unitedpaizoworkers.org. Okay. And we have a whole section there in our FAQ about what can you do to help? Like, because people ask us this all the time, and we want to answer you. So unitedpaizoworkers.org. Check out the FAQ, and I'm going to talk about a lot of the things that are there right now. So if anything I'm talking about is coming too fast or whatever, it's all there on the website. Please do not we are not asking for a boycott. If you want to, some folks canceled their subscriptions because of the Paizo accountability actions. You can turn that stick into a carrot. Rather than saying I'm going to cancel my subs, you can say I'll come back. I'll come back to Paizo if you recognize the union. I've been reading a lot of Twitter over the last 2 days of people saying, hey, I've never bought a Paizo book in my life, but if they go union, I'll pick up the core rule book, right? I'll check that out. You can write to the executives who are going to make these decisions. You can write to Lisa Stevens. You can write to Jeff Alvarez. You can write to Eric Mona, and their emails are all on unitedpaizoworkers.org. You can go onto our community forums and you can voice support. Now, I want to warn, that does not mean you need to argue with people, right? I know that when we go to the forums, our first instinct is to get involved in every flame war under heaven, right? But listen, you don't need to do that. You can go to the thread that says, like, United Paizo Workers. It's got 5 gold stars next to it. There's hundreds of messages there. And you can go on there and you can just say, I support the union. And you can tell people why and what you want out of it. And then that's it. And you can disengage. You don't have to get into a fight with other people. And so that's what I encourage you to do. Go on to social media, follow us there. United Paizo Workers has a Twitter feed. We've even got merch. If you're a consumer and you want to spend money to help the United Paizo Workers, we got mugs and t-shirts and pins and stickers, and we got all kinds of stuff. I got a t-shirt on the way, you know? So that's what I'd recommend. Like, use your voice. Your pocketbook, your money is one thing, but your voice is I think, I'm not speaking for the union here, I'm speaking for me. I think your voice is more persuasive than threats that you're going to stop buying stuff, you know? Write to them and just be honest and be sincere and passionate about what you believe. If you think that the union is a good thing, tell us your union story, man. Like, everybody's got a union story. And those are great stories, you know, like, unions have done a lot of good stuff for our country. And, you know, share that stuff and your love of the game and your love of the people. You know, people ask us, like, is this because are we all that attached to Paizo? Do we love Paizo that much? Let me tell you what we love. We love the people that work at Paizo. The Paizo the company is made up of individual people. Yeah. Some of the most creative, brilliant, cooperative, and funny people that you have ever met. And I'm lucky to work with them. And the support that we've gotten from fans, players, GMs, freelancers has been overwhelming.
I'll share my own union story for those of you out there listening. I work for the state of Oregon. I'm in HR, so I do not actually benefit from the union, but the entire state of Oregon government is unionized.
That's right.
Everyone is a member of the union, even if they're not dues paying. In HR, my manager was very frank that even though we're not union members, we get the same union benefits. Like what helps the workers helps those in management service too. If there's a deal worked out about time off, paid leave, whatever, generally it's just easier to make the same changes to the management service. And there are a couple little differences. Management service gets more vacation earned per month than union represented, but like, union workers have a level of protection that frankly we don't. And I'm very jealous of that. And I really want to get back to a position where I have that protection again. But I love our own union down here. That's with SEIU. So that's my own little story. Is this podcast is definitely pro-union. That said, we do sometimes get requests for people's information because we work with the state, and so all that information is accessible by the public. And every once in a while, we get email from a couple of various organizations telling us to stop paying our dues, telling us to break out from the union. So I have to ask, even though it's only been, publicly announced for a couple days, have you faced any pushback from managers or employees or even from outside sources?
Well, you're right that there has been no statement from the executive leadership of Paizo, but that should not surprise anyone. When a company begins to unionize, that is a huge change to the way the company does its business. It's just and the first thing that those executives are going to want to do is have a meeting and talk about what this means for the company. What's going to happen? What should we do? They're going to want to talk to their lawyers. Like they're going to want to check out there's a lot of decision-making process and a lot of thinking that's going to have to go into this. So I am not surprised at all that it's taking them some time to figure out what they want to do. And we should give them that time.
Who knew that such a big step would require consideration and not just an instant, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that being said, about 70% of companies that get a union effort oppose the union. They hire labor lawyers to anti-union labor lawyers, and they play a pretty well-established set of plays to both try to lure employees out of the union if they were inclined to vote yes, and to threaten them with all kinds of punishments. But we are protected by law. We live in Washington, which is an at-will employment state. It's a very regressive employment situation, and you can be fired for basically no reason. But federal law protects unionizing employees from retaliation. The penalty for that is a fine. And as distinguished game writer, television creator, and movie creator John Rogers has written many times, a fine is a price.
Right.
So if the penalty for firing a bunch of unionizing employees is a fine, well, now we're just talking about a financial evaluation, right? Now we're talking about a cost-benefit analysis. But all that said, I am hopeful that our executives will not do that, and they will obey the law, and they will do what is morally and ethically right. Lisa Stevens tries to do what is right. We are all fallible. All human beings screw up. Lord knows I have, right? And so there have been times when Paizo has stumbled, but I have never for a minute doubted that Lisa wants to do the right thing. So does Eric. Eric wants to do the right thing, and I think he feels like he's doing the best that he can in the current situation. So I'm hoping that I'm hopeful that those voices will prevail. So we have not seen any retaliation or any kind of really even any naysaying. I think there's a cynical viewpoint towards unions. There's some sort of like mob organized crime scam or something, that dues just go to line some executives' pockets. But, when you're talking about a company as small as ours, like the United Paizo Workers is not some obscure, remote mob boss in another country. Like it's us, right? Like it's us. It's the people. And so it's really hard to throw these blanket accusations around, these cynical evaluations of unions, when the people you're talking about are the people that make your role-playing games, right? They're like Pathfinder developers. Like it's us. The committee that runs United Paizo Workers is made up of United Paizo Workers, right? And we decide together what we're going to do.
Like I can tell you're making loads of dark money by the background in your R2D2 crockpot.
I bought that at Napa Sonoma on sale. I did. I bought that on sale. I think they'd had it had come out a year or two before, and they had like a bunch of them in the back room they're trying to unload, and I got it on clearance. The one thing that I wanted to get back to, though, that you just mentioned was managers. I want to note that a lot of the managers at Paizo are absolutely in support of us. In fact, 6 months ago, a lot of those managers were not managers, and they would have been in this union, right? They were talking about unions and forming unions and having meetings about forming unions before they became managers and couldn't do that anymore.
Right.
We have very strong support from the what we might think of as the middle management of Paizo, right? The managing editors, the managing developers, the managing designers, right?
I've been paying attention to comments on the 2E Reddit and other Pathfinder Reddits, and overall, very much in support of the union. Public is very much excited for this news, but every once in a while there is a little bit of concern. Of course, there are some blanket statements about unions just protect lazy workers, or police unions are also unions, and those are bad. But there is one that does come up fairly frequently, which is a little bit of a fear that this might raise prices on Paizo products. Is that something that people need to be concerned about, or is that something that could happen?
There's a complex stuff here. I'm going to try and wade into this a layer at a time here. First off, let's acknowledge prices are going to go up. Prices are going to go up. That has nothing to do with the union. We have a huge shipping snarl that COVID has created that goes all the way back through our supply lines to China and elsewhere. And the port of Los Angeles is backed up for months, right? This is raising the cost of shipping. The price of paper is going up. These things go up, and that's going to make prices go up. This is a little bit more complicated, but one of the things our company's been trying to do is to reduce crunch, to reduce the amount of time that Paizo employees are expected to work overtime. Well, how do you reduce crunch without hiring people? The answer is you cut products. And we trim the not important stuff, but we try to find stuff that maybe isn't making as much money as the amount of work we're putting into it. And we trim the schedule a little bit. Well, but we still need the money to pay the bills and the salaries, which means if we cut products from the line, we have to increase the prices of other products to make up for the money that those things would have earned. So this is all in the name of allowing Paizo employees to have a reasonable work-life balance, right? And not be pulling weekends all the time, working for peanuts.
So either way, prices are going to go up. It's more a question of, are they going to go up and Paizo workers are going to be, well taken care of? Or are they going to go up and more of the same just keeps happening?
Right. And there's one more thing that I kind of want to touch on. And this is something that a lot of gamers don't want to hear. Books in our hobby are chronically underpriced. Now, there are some notable exceptions, right? No one's going to say that a $70 hardback for a core rulebook is cheap. A lot of folks don't realize how many people are required to make these books, right? Paizo's creative staff is 35 people. We've got editors and art directors and developers and designers and organized play people and creative directors and then we've got all of the other side, the operations side of the business. We've got a lot of salaries. There's 70 to 80 people working at Paizo, and they deserve a decent salary, right? Well, it's really tough to make those salaries when books are priced so cheap. And the amount of time and energy that we spend on these products. One of the problems is a lot of us, and I'm a customer too. I go to Mox's boarding house and buy games every week, right? That we think of these books as books. When you go and you buy the latest edition of Starfinder or Pathfinder, right? We think of it as a book, and it's a hardback book, and it's 200 or 300 pages if it's the Mwangi Expanse book. And we expect to pay like the price that we pay for a hardback book that took one person to write for a year, and then an editor and a publisher and all that business. But instead, you're not just getting a book. You're not getting a book that you read once. Like, I don't know what your original gaming story is, but, I got that D&D basic set box and I played that thing for a year, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you think about the amount of time that you get to use one of these role-playing games, it's way more than just reading it once through like you were reading a novel, right? Like, the use that you get out of that book. And it's not just the text, it's the art and everything in there. Like, Paizo's graphic design is second to none.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of the things that everybody acknowledges about Paizo, is that our art, our graphic design is part of the reason why people buy these books in the first place. I was looking through the Mwangi Expanse book, and it's got those beautiful 2-page maps of all of the cities in the Expanse with like all kinds of cool icons for like what they trade resources are and the gods that are worshipped there. And it's just super cool. Well, anyway, my point is that when we sell a role-playing game, we need to get out of this habit of thinking that we sell it like a book, and we think more like we sell it and buy it like it's a game that you're going to play for a year and a half, right?
Yeah.
Think of it as a PlayStation,
right?
Not as a novel. Well, anyway, this is a long way of me getting around the fact that prices need to go up.
Yeah.
Prices need to go up for these books. Now, that I'm not, if you're a listener and you're thinking, well, I can't afford to buy these books, you're right. Like, people don't have enough money. People do not have enough money in this country, and that's exactly the problem we need to fix.
Right.
I am with you 100%. The problem is not that the books are too expensive. The problem is you don't get paid enough.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So this is definitely like a choose two kind of thing, is either prices are down, quality of the book goes down, or what, like a lesser quality game gets published.
As far as for, ultimately what this question is about is let's say that prices do go up. Your question was like, is that price increase merited? And this is going to come down to our union representation, because we will have a union. And there's no question that we're going to have a union. We have a super majority of supporters who have gone public. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Once we have a union, then we'll have full financial transparency, and we'll be able to ensure that those salary increases go to the people that deserve them. Having a clear and established process for pay increases is another one of our demands, another one of the things that we would like to see. If we're doing evaluations once or twice a year, and we do evaluations twice a year, then our pay increase should be linked to that. If we're doing good on our evaluations, we should get more money. That would be great if that happens.
Right.
It does not. Right? So let's get some union representation in the room when those salary increases get decided. And let's make that increase in the book price worth it.
Right.
Worth it to everyone.
Something that I've been reading about too about this union is that it's a first for the gaming industry. And so I'm curious, let's play a little hypothetical ball. So let's say Aridin is back. We got prophecy going. We're looking into the future. Do you think that this is something that, again, you said it's a matter of when, not if. Could this cause a sea change with gaming in general?
Well, I would like to see it happen. Now, I want to clarify that the tabletop role-playing game industry is very, very small. Most of the people that publish role-playing games are not full-time employees. They're doing it as a side gig, right? They've got a day job, and they freelance, or they publish their own games on the side. The number of full-time tabletop role-playing game professionals is very small. And it's even smaller if we're just talking about America, right? Because a lot of big publishers are in England and elsewhere. So I would like to see this change propagate throughout the industry. And I think that Paizo is unique in its position to make that happen. Mm-hmm. We're not just any other tabletop role-playing game company. We are one of, I believe, the largest, if you just count tabletop role-playing employees. Like Wizards is bigger, but if you just took their tabletop role-playing staff, we could beat them in a fair fight. Yeah. Like we outnumber those folks.
Not to mention that they're represented by the largest toy company ever with Transformers and Star Wars and all of that stuff.
So you want some hard truth about Hasbro and Wizards? Mm-hmm. The last financial report for Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast is the most profitable division of Hasbro.
Wow.
D&D and Magic the Gathering are the number one profit source for Hasbro. Hasbro is not a toy company. Hasbro is a role-playing game and trading card company that occasionally makes toys. Wow. So I think that we want to be careful about comparing Paizo and Wizards. Sure. They're so different. Like Wizards, the intellectual property of Dungeons and Dragons and the incredible success of 5th edition and the whole D&D 5e phenomenon has catapulted Wizards into another level of competition. Mm-hmm. They don't compete with Paizo. They compete with Blizzard and Marvel.
Right.
Like those are the companies that they're competing with in the intellectual property arena, in the media empire, mm-hmm. right? We are so small compared to them. So I don't believe for a second that anything we do at Paizo is going to affect anything at Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro. Like we're getting back to the old, does the ant know what happens when the boot steps on it kind of question, right? But everybody else in this industry absolutely notices what Paizo does, mm-hmm. right? And if other tabletop or role-playing game companies or miniature game, war game companies or card game companies or board game companies should see what Paizo is doing, and if United Paizo workers can make some real changes, right? If we can be more than just a token, right? We're going to make an actual difference for the people that work here. And we could inspire something. I would love to see that.
Awesome.
But I don't want to get like too far ahead of ourselves, right? Like we got a 2-month, 6 to 8 week plan, and we're going to stick to it. If nothing else happens, if no other company ever changes, we can still make lives better for the 50 employees that work at Paizo and that are eligible for union membership. We can get them better salaries. We can get them remote work conditions if they want it. We can get diversity training and diversity officers in the company. We can get union representation on all kinds of decisions, from freelancer contract rates to carpet cleaning.
Yeah,
everything.
Carpet cleaning. That's amazing. I very much support this effort. I am on pins and needles to see when we can say it is recognized by Paizo one way or the other.
Yeah.
But in that meantime, in those 6 to 8 week plans, where can people keep up to date on what's going on and find out more ways to get involved?
So Paizo Worker website, which we've already talked about, unitedpaizoworkers.org. We have a Twitter account at Paizo Workers. I am at Dr. Comics, all one word, at Dr. Comics, at Paizo Workers. And many of my fellow coworkers, my colleagues, are also on Twitter, and you can find us from the at Paizo Workers account, right? We're all there. So you can follow us there. We'll be updating our blog with the fight. We'll be updating our Twitter and social media. Twitter is really our home as far as our social media presence goes. But we'll be using our blog to disseminate things like this interview. Will show up on our blog and on our Twitter feed, and other interviews that we've done, our media presence. So that's where you can follow us. Follow Paizo Workers at Paizo Workers or unitedpaizoworkers.org.
Well, folks, we hope that you will join in on voicing your support for this union. I hope that you have a better understanding of what's going on. And hopefully, for those of you who were listening to this with some doubts, I really hope that this helps show you how big of a difference this could make in a game that we all love, whether you're playing first edition, second edition, or Starfinder. This would be a huge monumental change, and I am convinced, absolutely convinced, it'll only help Paizo for the better.
I agree.
Make sure to let us know. Check out Paizo Workers on Twitter. Let me know at Rulelord2e on Twitter as well. And check out Rulelord2e.com for more ways to listen. But until next session,
don't split the party.
For the fight auto workers who are twisted, tricked, and robbed, to the peasant in Guatemala in a sweatshop got your job, and she can't feed her family on the pennies that she makes. Meanwhile, the crime rate's rising up and down the Great Lakes states. Like vegetables left in the field, the signatures smell rotten on the contracts and the deeds that push the race down to the bottom. As they load the rubber bullets, as they fire another round, I'm heading to the tear gas. Dig in, man, hold your ground. For Joe Hill and Cesar Chavez, who fought in their own time. For our brothers and our sisters up and down that picket line. For the unnamed and unnumbered who struggle brave and long. For the union men and women standing up and standing strong. Help!